Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. I am Mr. Kadim Khan and I am a lecturer in the Institute of Computing, Quad University of Science and Technology. Today we will take lecture number 21 of the subject of visual programming, in which we are going to discuss the user-defined controls in Visual C#.NET. Dear students, user-defined controls are exactly as like the user-defined functions. So when we have certain problems in which the built-in controls do not fulfill our requirements, then we develop our own user-defined controls. The built-in user interface are those controls which are the GUI components. So here we will develop our own control using the user-defined control in Visual C#.NET. So in this lectures we are demonstrating user-defined controls. This is the discussion agenda. It contains different topics including user-defined controls in C#.NET, why we are going to create our own user-defined controls. Then we have the advantages of user-defined controls. Here we will in fact follow different steps for creating the user-defined controls, and at the end we have very much important section in which we will demonstrate the examples of user-defined control in the Visual C#.NET. Now, what is the user-defined controls? Basically, user-defined controls are developed by the programmer for different usage. For example, the existing controls do not fulfill our requirements, then we will develop our own control using different existing controls. Also, these controls can be drag drop from the toolbox onto the form, and these controls in fact saves the times and resources required for the development. So once you develop these controls, you can use this control many times on the forms or on the same form or on the different forms. So for example, this is the solution explorers. To create this control, you need to right click on the project, then take the user defined controls, and then designs and develop the user defined controls, and then you can drag drop that controls onto your form from the toolbox. So here we were going to demonstrate all these steps. Now, what is the reasons for creating the user controls? Basically, the main reason is that sometimes the existing GUI components do not fulfill our needs. So that's why we have to develop our own controls by using the existing controls. So we can create the existing user-defined control, which gives us the advantages of high cohesion and low coupling. High cohesion का मतलब that meaning is that high cohesion means that the different components are highly cohesive. The functionality here is the cohesive. So functions are logically related here, and low coupling means that they are independent from each other. They are not dependent. So the dependency is resolved by low coupling here. Now, what is the advantage of user-defined control? First of all, it gives us the advantage of code reusability. So once you develop the user-defined controls, then you can use these controls so many times in your projects. So just you need to drag drop these controls onto your form. So that means that you have not to do the code again. So just one time the coding is required, and you can use these controls many times in your Visual Studio applications. It also saves the time. So that means that just one time you need to develop, and you do not redevelop that controls. So just drag drop these controls from the toolbox and into your form. Also, it is requires less effort. So less efforts means that the programmer effort is saved here. So programmer do not required to redevelop these controls. So that's why their precious efforts is saved here. Also, it is easy to find the bugs and fix it. So once you have debugged the user-defined controls, and then you can use that control again and again. So that's why you have not to develop the same functionality. So that's why you can easily find the bugs and then fix it one times, and you can reuse that control so many times. Also, it save memory. Also, save memory means that When that user defined control is running in the background into your cache memory, so that's mean that is one time running, and you can use that controls many times onto different forms in your project. So that's why it saves the computer memory here and make the application very much efficient. Now, what are different steps used for creating the user-defined control? There are many steps used to create the user-defined controls. First, you need to create the new project in the Solution Explorers. Then go to the Solution Explorer and right-click in that on that particular project. Then click on Add New Items. Then click on the user-defined controls. Then you need to design and run your applications, and then drag drop that user control on your form. Now, for example, here we have user control 1, that is user defined control. You need to drag drop that control onto your form. So how you can develop this? First of all, you have to right click on the Windows application solution, which is the project name. Right click, add new items, select the user defined control or user controls, then you will develop the controls, then compile the controls. After compiling the controls and saving the controls, you will get that control onto your toolbox. So just drag drop that control onto your form and run the applications, then you will enjoy the benefit or the functionality of that controls. Now here we are going to explain an example of user-defined control in Visual C Sharp.NET. Example is for computing the square root, and the logarithm of a number by using user-defined controls. So this will be our functionality. Here you will enter some values, and then when you will enter the values, the result will be displayed here. So here you have the option of square root, log, and calculate. So first you need to design the user defined control as like the below, and then you have to add the functionality by the correct event of this button with the help of the programming. So this will be our code here: private void button1 underscore click object sender comma event argse. Here it is the event. This is the private event. Private means this is only accessible in the current project. Void means that it will not return anything, so just that's data type is void. Button1 underscore click is the function name here, and object sender event args are two different parameters. Object sender means the object which is responsible to receive these events, and event args means that the buttons are the keyboards. E, which is the in fact represents the particular keyboard stroke which will rise the event. Now this is the body of the event, and the body of event is enclosed here. Here first of all we have declared the integer n1, and in dot parse text box 1 dot text it takes the strings from the text box, and it then typecasts that strings into integer, and it is assigned to int, which is the integer data type n1. Now if radio button 1 dot check, that means that first radio button is checked. Then text box 2 dot text, that is the second text box, its text will be math class dot power is the function n1 comma 2. Here power function calculate the square of n1, which is n1 comma 2, it is the power, and it is inherited from the math class. In fact it is implemented here in the math class. That to string is the conversion to strings. Similarly, if radio button 2 dot check text box 2 dot text math dot square root and 1 comma dot 2 strings, here it will also in fact assigns the square root to the text box of the n1 over n1, and it is typecasted to two strings because text box is in fact taking, and it also accepting the strings here. So that's why that is the type cast into strings. If radio button 3 dot check text box 2 dot text is equal math dot log and 1 dot 2 strings. So if third radio button is checked, then text box 2 dot text is equal to, that means that this text box has this strings, and the string is the math class log function over n1. So n1 is the variable. Here it will calculate the logarithm function using the math class, and that is typecast into the two strings. And when this event is called, so that means that it gives us the functionalities of calculating power, square root, and log. So dear students, now we are going to demonstrate this example in our Visual Studio. So for this purpose, click on escape button to exit the slide. Click new Visual Studio Windows application form. This is my Windows application form. Okay, so I need to design my own user defined controls here. So for this purpose, go to the Solution Explorer. So when you go to the Solution Explorer, then right click on the Windows application form apps, which is the projects here, while above is the solution. So this is the projects. Right click on this projects, then go to the add menu, and then go to the new item, that is add new item sub menus. So just you click here. When you click here, the new window will appear. From here you will select the user defined control. You can rename this control. For example, I want to rename this controls that it is the math 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 functions. It gives us the math functions. So this is my control name, math functions, and click on add. When you click on add, then you will see that here I receives a borderless form. So here I will first design the my user defined control. So to designs here, you need to drag drop your required controls here. First of all, I need one buttons, and then again go to the toolbox. Again go to the toolbox here, and also I need one level. I want to place a level here. Then I also need one text box. So one text box is placed here. Okay. Now I will rename this label. That is the I want to change the text of label, that is enter a number. Enter a number. So here the user will type a number in this text box. Okay. Next, go again to the copy the label and this text box. Right click, copy, and then right click, paste. So you will see that another instance of a label and text box is placed here. Now just select this label and go to the property and change its text here. That is the result. Okay, you can see that the result is also here. So I want to make it empty. Here this is empty. Now you can see that this text box is now empty. Now go to the toolbox again and drag drop a radio buttons here on this control. So this is my first radio buttons. Then you can copy this radio buttons and to provides another reference. This is another uh, instance of this label, again paste so that you can get 3 different radio buttons. Now click on this radio buttons to change its text properties. This is radio button 1, so I want to change that text property, that is the square. Now the user will see that this radio button will calculate the square. This button will calculate square root. Now this radio button is calculating the square root. This button is in fact calculating logarithm. So it will calculate logarithm. Now this radio button is calculating logarithm. Okay, and this button's text or its label should be that calculate. This is now calculate. Now my design has been completed now. So I can resize this controls here. You can see that the design has been completed here. Now to change little bit its font properties. So I will select shapes. This font is not a good one for me, so that's why I want to change its font. So just click here this button so that the font dialogs will appear. You can see that this font is now in the bold, and also I want to change um, the the color property of this. Again, I will select this radio button. So go to the property dialog. Also, I want to change its color property. For example, I want to make it green. You can see that they are now green. Again, I want to change the properties of these uh, radio buttons into green. Now, also I want to change the properties of the buttons. So I change the font property and color property of the button. So you can see that now this is my designing. So now design has been complete. Now I want to add the event to this button. So when it is will be clicked, then it will perform some functionalities. So I need to associate an event with this button. So just double click on this. When you double click on this button, you will go to the event handler shares private void button one underscore click object senders command event argse. This is the event handler which is created automatically in the Visual Studio. So now I want to add the functionality in n1. N1 is the variable which is of the integer data types, and this will be taken from the keyboard using text box. So n dot parse, and the data will be taken from the text box. So I have first text box, that is text box one uh, dot text. So now you can see that the text property is typecasted into integer. It means that here the integer value will be assigned to int n1, which is the integer variable. Now here I have typecasted n1 into the integer, that is here the keyboard will takes in fact using text box the in values. Next is the if statement. If first review button has been clicked, if review button one dot checked, that means that first review button is checked, then text box 2 dot text is equal to math dot power function of n1 comma 2. That means that n1 is in fact our variable which is in fact the values which takes input from the text box. That means that the power function will calculate the square of n1 using the math class, and then it is typecasted into strings so that it will be assigned to the text box 2. Now our first functionality has been completed. If radio button 2, that is second radio button, has been checked, that means when it is clicked with the mouse, then again our text box 2 dot text is equal to math dot next one will calculate the square root. So net dot square root function of n1. N1 is the square root function. So here dot two strings will be used to typecast that square root into strings, and it will be assigned to the checkbox 2 using the math class. Next, again I will use the if statements here. If radio button 3 dot checked, if third radio button is checked, then textbox 2 dot text is equal to math, again here math class dot logarithm of n1 dot two strings. Now this will again calculate the logarithm of n1, and then it will be typecasted to strings, and the whole values will be assigned to the text box 2 by using text properties. Now you can see that my code is complete. So this is the our design, and this is our code, and this one is our form. So you can see that here in the toolbox, this is the toolbox. If I go to the designs of form 1 and I will see the toolbox, you can see that there is no my user control here, which is in fact this the math function.cs. Math function.cs is not available here. But when I will I will I will compile this code. So I will compile here. You will see that there will be no output. You can see that by using compiling using this controls, I cannot see any output here because this controls do not give me an input output at this position because I didn't drag drop that control onto my form. So I have just compiled it here. So you can see that compilation has been completed. Now I will you can see that the form has run, but there is no certain functionalities here. So I need to drag drop this control onto this into this form. So I will close this form. Now also I need to save this full projects, and again I will go to the designs of the form 1, and now click here. It is now just you can just go to the toolbox, and now you can see that math functions, the user control is now available here because after compiling and saving the full project, I can see it's now here in the toolbox. Now just drag drop that on the only any ordinary form. You can see that I have drag drop. Again you go and drag drop here again one another instance of this controls. So I have drag drop another instance of this controls here, and you can similarly drag drop that control onto your form according to your choice on that particular position where you want. For example, I have drag drop 3 different users controls here. So I have in fact designs and programmed this control only one time, and now I can drag drop this control so many times as I required here. So that is the advantage of this user defined control, which saves the time and resources and the efforts of the programmer. Now when I will compile the project, now when I will compile this, now you can see that the instance of that user defined control is now available here, and it will give me functionalities. For example, enter a number here. I want to enter the number 10. If you I want to calculate the square of 100 and click on this, now you can see that the square of 100 is 10,000. If I want to calculate the square root of this 100, the square root of 100 is 10. If I want to calculate the logarithm of this 100, the logarithm of this 100 is in fact 4.65. And here this controls will give me another output. For example, there is for example 10, and I want to calculate the square of 10, then I will click here. If I want to calculate the square root of 10, then I will click here. And similarly, if I, for example, here is another control 9. If I want to calculate the square root of this 9, it will give me the output here. Now you can see that here it saves a lot of time for me because I can drag drop that particular functionalities from the toolbox so many times as I required here on this form or on the different form of your projects. For example, if I will close it here and here go to the solution explorers, right click here, add another form here, add new, go to the add new items, add another form. This is a form 2. Click on this. Now you can see this is another forms. So you can also drag that drop that control onto this form as well. For example, I want to drag drop this controls from toolbox onto this form. So there you can see that this is another form, and here I can drag drop as many times as I want on this form. So if you want to change for in this controls, you have to go to and again to the designs of the that original controls. Here you will, for example, you can add another function. For example, and I want to add another buttons here. So this is another buttons. So you need to redevelop or redesign or change coding and that controls. So just you, for example, this is another button that is I want to make it close. So this will be close, and here just double click here and I will call it close. Close. This will close. In fact, this will in fact our close, our shutdown, our exits. So this will be used for uh, the close of this form. So here I need to create the objects first of all, then I will close the form here. Or I want to add a new functionality here in this controls. For example, I drag drop another buttons here, which is the close buttons. I want that when this button is clicked, then it will clear the clear the both text boxes. So just I clicked here, and now I want to change its font properties here like that. Its font should be bold, okay. And also I want to change its color property. That is the text colors of these buttons. This button should be, for example, of this color. Now I want to add some code here, so just I double click here. So for example, text1 dot text is equal to empty strings or textbox 2 dot clear. Clear function will clear the output. Now, as I have just drag drop that buttons from CS. So now you can see that when I will recompile or rerun the projects, automatically the changes will be in fact reflected there. You can see that another button has been created, that is the clear buttons. And now I will test the applications. For example, if I want to calculate the square of 200, which is 400, 20 multiplied by 20 is equal to 400. And if I want to calculate the logarithms, etc., or square root of this, then it will be calculated here. If I want to click on clear, you can see that these two text boxes are now cleared. No, so this was the user-defined controls. Once you have done changes in the user-defined control, you do not need to make changes on any other ways where you have just drag drop that control onto your form. So you do not need to redevelop or redesigning there. So this is the advantage of the user-defined control, which saves the time for you and also save different resources for you. So this was the topic of the user-defined controls. Now we will resume our slides here. So this is the complete methodology. You have just drag drop that onto your form as many times as you required from the toolbox onto your form. And you will see the functionality when you will run the application. It will give you complete functionality here. Now, dear student, this is the end of the lectures. If you have any question, you can ask your questions through the email. My email is m.kadeem@kust.edu.pk, which is here in the footer section of the slides. And also, if you want to study more, these two books are for your reference purpose. You can download these books and study about them. Thank you very much.